Hi, Jada. I looked at your work and I picked a couple problems from 7.1 and 7.2 to show you how to work them using StatCrunch. So this is my homework, so the numbers are going to be different from yours, but at least you'll be able to see how I work them. So the first one I picked was in 7.1 homework, and it's problem number 11. And they give us data about respondents if they feel vulnerable to identity theft. And in the poll, this is the information, and you need to use the StatCrunch tool. We need the sample size and X, which is the number of successes, and then the confidence interval. So what I'm going to do is go to question help, and I'm going to open StatCrunch, and we're dealing with proportions here. So I'm going to go to stat, proportion stats, one sample, and all the proportion problems, both in this week and also in the week coming up with hypothesis testing, use summary data. Okay, so you're going to enter in here, as I mentioned before, we need the number of successes, which we had as 546. And then the sample size was 911. And they wanted a 99% confidence level. So I go down here to confidence interval, and I change the confidence level here to 0.99. And by the way, for this coming week, where we're doing hypothesis testing, you're going to be using the option up above here to perform a hypothesis test, and then just compute. Okay, so here's your confidence interval. Here's your P, here's your proportion estimate right there, your point estimate from the sample. Here's your lower limit of your confidence interval, and here's your upper limit. And the first part of the question asks us to find the best point estimate, and that's the sample proportion right there, 0.599. Now, to find the margin of error, StatCrunch doesn't do that for you, but it's easy enough for you to do once you have the confidence interval. So I'm going to take the upper bound, 0.641, and I'm going to subtract the lower bound, which was 0.558, and I'm going to divide by 2. So I get a margin of error of point rounded to 3 decimals, 0.042, which I've shown right here. Now the confidence interval, you're going to read right from the output. 0.558 is the lower bound, 0.641 is the upper bound. And then there's an interpretation question at the end, and I'll leave that for you to answer. All right, let's go on and take a look at question number 12. And by the way, once you have that StatCrunch tool opened for this unit, you can just keep using the same one over and over again. So we're going through the same steps on this question. So let's get my tool back up. And we're looking at blood clots here. And again, you can just go to options and edit, and you can just update the information that's in the tool. So now we have nausea, and we're looking at 110 subjects had that reaction out of 4340. So I'm going to put that in for the number of observations. And then they wanted a 95% confidence interval. So I'm going to change my confidence level down here to 0.95, and I'm going to compute. Okay, so again, StatCrunch did the calculation for the sample proportion, and that simply is 110 divided by 4340. And so I put that in here, 0.025. Again, the margin of error, if I take my calculator, and I'm going to take the upper bound, which is here 0.030, and I'm going to subtract the lower bound of the confidence interval, which is 0.021, and I'm going to divide by 2. And so I get 0.005 when I rounded off the 3 decimals. And then down here, I entered in the lower bound and upper bound of the confidence interval directly from the output. And again, there's a last part of the question, which I'll let you answer. And then also pick number 15. So for number 15, this was the one about the science there and the professional touch therapist. So if it was just using a coin toss to either select the right or left hand, then the proportion of correct responses would be 50%, so 0.5. Okay, and then again, the same steps for the next part that we just did. So if I go back to my tool, and I can just go in and edit it and put in the data from this problem. So we have 132 times that they correctly picked out of 290. Oops, got an extra 0 in there. And down here, they're going to end up asking you for 95%. So we'll leave that at 95. Okay, so here's your point estimate, 0.455, which I entered here. Here's my lower bound for my confidence interval, 0.398. My upper bound is 0.512. And then again, there's a last part of the question, which I'll let you answer. All right, and then I picked a couple from 7.2, which is the section on dealing with confidence intervals, confidence estimates for means. So if we go to 7.2, and I'm going to do 2 problems here because you're actually going to have data presented 2 different ways in this section. In the last section, it's only given to you as summary data. In this section, sometimes it's summary data and sometimes it's the actual data. So this is the first problem that I worked. And this one gives me summary data. So we've got body temperatures of healthy adults. And again, I'm going to go over here to StatCrunch. And this time, the tool I'm going to use is T-Stats. So I'm going to go Stat, T-Stats, one sample. I have summary now. I have summary data, so just like I had for the proportions, but I don't have successes this time. I have the sample mean, which was given to us as 98.3, so I'm going to enter that here. And the sample standard deviation was given to me as 0.54, and the sample size is 109. And then down below, it's going to say the same options here. We're going to do a confidence interval, and we're going to do a 0.99 confidence interval. And then compute, just hit enter or compute. Okay, so my point estimate, which is the first part of the question, I believe. Oh, no, it isn't. This is just do a confidence interval. If I wanted the point, you don't have the point estimate you were given was 98.3, or oh yeah, you don't have to do that. So lower bound here, 98.164, upper bound of the confidence interval, 98.436, and then again, there's an interpretation question as the last part. And then I also thought I'd do question 13, because this is a little bit different. This time you have data. So we're looking at sushi in, or mercury in fish, in tuna sushi. So I've got an icon here where I can open this up directly in StatCrunch. Now I've got the data, so I actually have less steps to do here. I'm going to go to T-Stats, one sample with data. I'm going to click on the column with the data, and then down here, all I have to do is tell it what confidence level I want to do, and I want to do a 90%. So I'm going to hit 0.9 and compute. All right, so here's my confidence interval. So it goes from 0.455, 0.456 actually, up to 1.022. And then again, there's an interpretation question down here. So that gives you an idea in 7.2 that data will be presented two different ways. Sometimes you'll have summary data, and then you use stats, T-Stats, one sample with summary, and sometimes you have the data, so you're going to go to the with data option. So that should help you with 7.1 and 7.2.